Yeah, you can take me there. I see you and you see me too. We may be broke, but we see the truth. All this bullshit drama, I can see right through. Everybody wants something they can't have, so they gon' put it on you. Wherever you go, yeah, you can take me there. Over the ocean, I can see us there. Let's run away and be forever young. We'll catch the sun where there's no need to run. Wherever you go, yeah, you can take me there. Yeah, you can take me there. Yeah, you can take me there. Yeah, you can take me there.
Tonight, I want to talk to you about violence in our cities. It's been the brutality of a mob. I will use whatever force is necessary to restore order.
That's that shit I do like.
A state of chaos and disorder is upon us. Will you take up arms? Will you help us make our last stand? The time is now. Let us be heard as we sing our way into battle. light up the sky with fire.
Tonight, I want to talk to you about violence in our cities. It's been the brutality of a mob. I will use whatever force is necessary to restore order.
Get your ass up. We know how to turn it up. 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 Get your ass.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Down in the Valley. My name is Edson Ochoa, and I am one of your hosts for today's episode, which is episode number 33 already. And my sister says hi back right there in the background in the kitchen. You can't see her because she's like behind the webcam, and then there's the dog that's barking and growling. So pay no attention to that. Okay, I'm done. Anyways, so sorry about that, guys. I really can't do much about that, actually. So, anyways, barring that interruption. So my name is Edson Ochoa. I am accompanied today by a couple of members. Actually, we have our other co-host, Jacob Young, who's here with us right now. How are you doing, Jacob?
Doing really well. Looking forward to speaking about this abysmal team that is the Toros at the moment, aka that game versus the team that we can't beat.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's just a lot of, it's something that's historical in many aspects of this head-to-head encounter with the Sacramento Republic FC, especially over there at their home. And like you say, we just can't seem to beat them. But we will talk a little bit more about that. We also have Cesar Cortez, who is joining us on this episode today. How are you doing, Cesar?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on today.
Not a problem. So Ray Silva will be getting on a little bit later on during the show, probably around 8 o'clock. And Sean will be going on as well around 8:30. We know he does have a couple of things that he wants to talk about as before the show ends. But before we get started officially with this episode, I do want to let you all know that be sure to check out our friends from the Beautiful Game Network, our producers for the podcast. Basically, they are the ones that make it possible for our show, our podcast, to make it in the Google Play Store, iTunes, as well as Stitcher. And so be sure to give them a follow on Twitter at the BGNFM. You can also like them on Facebook at the BGNFM as well. Be sure to check out the website at bgn.fm. While you are there, you can find our podcast there, as well as other USL podcasts like Backchat Show, the USL Show, Sock Takes, and many, many others who are really, really good in quality, as well as BGN Written, in which Ray Silva is going to start being a correspondent, a writer for them. So be sure to check out their articles as well. You can also follow our social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, SoundCloud, YouTube as well, and Instagram, which is kind of new, at Down in the RGV. So be sure to give us a follow there. Be sure to also check out our website, which is downintheRGV.com, where we will have galleries of pictures, articles, as well as the podcast that will be available for you to see there. So be sure to check those out. And as well, before I forget, be sure to check out the BGN sponsor, which is Roughneck Scarves. Roughneck Scarves are the official scarf supplier for MLS, USL, and NCAA. So be sure to check them out at www.roughneckscarves.com. Alrighty then, guys. So having said all of that, in which I'm already getting a little thirsty for saying all of that. So first things first, Jacob, you talked about it before we started, and that is the Toros just cannot seem to find a way to defeat Sacramento Republic at Sacramento. There's just something about Sacramento. Keep in mind, we are talking about a team that is constantly in first or second place in the Western Conference. Thank you so much. But even through that, you know, with this team, with the potential that it had, I mean, 30 seconds in, and we were already winning 1-0. We were pretty much dominating the first half, and then all of a sudden, it just gets deflated. Gets deflated. You know, like the footballs and the New England Patriots. But we're not talking about that sport here. We're not talking about hand egg. But you get the point. Second half, the team just seemed to deflate, and Sacramento just happened to take over. What happened?
We've seen it all season long. It really has been the case on the road, not just at home. We have seen this team deflate later on at home. But I think the problem basically was it was all the players that got tired. Yes, we can give AJ De La Garza a break. Super subs, as we call them, that come on later in the match should actually make a bigger difference to help us get through the hope that we have in the second half. It's frustrating that, of course, those subs can't really make a difference because guess what? That's basically where all of the goals happened, where they took off and ran away with this game.
It's just, I don't know. And in the end, and we keep on going back to it, set pieces. Set pieces just happen to always manage to bite us in the butt. And in this case, this match just was not the exception. 2 goals coming off set pieces. The first one, a short free kick that is crossed over to Cameron Iwasa. 7 minutes later, another free kick that is taken advantage as well by, I believe it was Kevin Aleman. And that was a 2-1.
Exactly. And guess what? Can't make every single save possible. He already had, during that game, before Sacramento had actually scored, that huge save where it saved RGVFC from being down 3-1 in a way. And there you can already say Tyler Derrick has done his job. Of course, coming up to the next one, be ready for them. Coach one time, or not coach, but someone one time actually said this. Near your man constantly on set pieces. And if you don't do that, guess what? They're most likely going to score. And that's exactly what happened. Why isn't RGVFC able to stay on their man and mark them during those pieces?
I definitely agree with you. And I think the biggest culprit of the 2 goals, if you look at the 2 goals, there seems to be one common denominator. And that is Jorginho James is the one that loses his mark. And in both goals, the player who he was supposed to mark, or at least to accommodate, it was mostly in the area of Jorginho James. And I might be going a little too hard on the guy, but it just seems too constant for it to be a coincidence for me. Sure, of course, the rest of the defense had some sort of fault in these goals, but the fact is, I mean, why can't Jorginho? We know how he's a big, strong player, and we keep on going back at it. He doesn't know how to take advantage of that corpulence, that strength, that physique, and to take advantage and make it a plus for this team. And it just doesn't happen with him. And we've had many games also where he isn't accurate with his passing either, which leads to opportunities for the opposing team. What's going on with Jorginho? And I remember that in the beginning of the season, we were like, why isn't Jorginho playing? Why isn't Jorginho playing? You know, why are we going with these young guys, you know, before Jorginho? And now we're starting to understand why Coach Echeverri did not put Jorginho, even if we thought that a player like Jorginho would have been a huge advantage for us.
Exactly. And of course, like you said, we're starting to realize why. Why is Echeverri starting to play Jorginho James over these on the bench that we know can play much better than George, and not to mention have depth. We constantly have depth. We've got one player that is a homegrown player to RGVFC, play that position particularly, but you get my point. We've got players that can play in his position that are much better than him because of the fact that that's what this year has.
Cesar, what did you think of the match?
Well, obviously, I had hope. I had high hopes as soon as Carlos Toma was able to get just like the quickest goal that RGV's ever seen. I really don't know. I had high expectations for them, but given their past experiences with road games, I was kind of neutral on it, and my expectations were pretty much met with the final score 2-1.
I agree with you, man. I mean, it was the best time if we had an opportunity to pretty much shake off the ghosts of Papa Murphy's Park, you can say.
Yeah.
You know, this is a stadium where last year we were completely annihilated by this Sacramento team, 6-2, in a disappointing, and I dare say, and I put it in that article that I wrote at that time, embarrassing display of soccer by RGVFC last year.
June 21st.
Exactly. This year, I didn't even get a chance to start the stream. By the time I got into it, like a couple of seconds later, it was like I was in the first minute when I managed to get on the stream, and I saw that RGV was already winning 1-0. And I was like, holy smokes, like this is finally the time where the team is going to show up and is going to prove to the rest of the USL, at least to the Western Conference, that, hey, we might be in 15th, but we are a force to be reckoned with. And the feeling was still there as the half went on because it was mostly the Toros dominating. It was mostly Toros. Carlos Small had a couple of opportunities. Chuy had an opportunity as well that was greatly saved by the goalkeeper. And in fact, in that play, I dare say that Tainter managed to get a foot on Aldo Quintanilla, who Carlos Small's pass was intended for. Tainter trips over Aldo Quintanilla. It should have been a penalty. But I assume that because there was an advantage because Chewy got the ball inside the box and was able to take the shot while the call was not made. But and credit to Josh Cohen, who was able to get to that ball and avoid the goal. But then in the second half, like I said, it was just that team was gone. And it was made much worse when Carlos Esmal was subbed off. How important, how talented is Carlos Esmal by the simple fact that when he's subbed off, the whole team just gets lost. It's a completely different team without him. We see the same team that we see in the rest of the season. Chewy tries. By the way, happy birthday, Chewy.
Yes, sir. We got to mention that. Happy birthday, Mr. Enriquez.
But when Carlos Esmal isn't there, it seems like Chuy Enrique tries to do almost everything. Like the whole weight of the attack falls on Chuy Enriquez, and he can't do everything himself. Kai Green kind of goes up. He had a couple of good crosses, but Aldo Quintanilla, and we continue to say it. I mean, yes, he got the assist on the goal, but your role is the striker. And we keep on seeing this Aldo Quintanilla with weak shots or shots that go over the bar. What's going on? I don't know. We talked about it. We kind of talked about it last week. We feel like maybe the pressure's onto him because of Carlos Esmal. Is that the truth? Nobody knows except for Aldo. Or except for Coach Echeverri. But his slump comes at a very unfortunate time where playoffs are pretty much slipping out of our fingers like sand. We cannot afford to let lose any more points if we want to make it to the playoffs. Is it time to just give up and just salvage whatever points we can? And like Carson put in his article yesterday, pretty much let the rest of the season be a tryout for the 2019 season? What do y'all think?
I guess I'll go first here. And yes, there's still a small chance. And I remember being with the Stampede last year and going through, we had chances and actually seeing RGVFC try their hardest, maybe not their hardest on the road, but their hardest at home. Moving forward with this same thing, I still think, yes, RGVFC can still try, but the only problem is, I'm just looking at the lineup here, brought to you by USL website that takes forever to load.
Yeah, we had Tyler Derrick on goal, AJ De La Garza, who was coming back from an injury after 9 months and 3 weeks. Which, by the way, we will be talking about that interview that we had in Generation Orange with AJ De La Garza. He did make some remarks about RGVFC, and we will play that, and we will talk about that. So that will be a little bit later. But going on, we also had Kai Green. He was playing in the left back position, and I know many times we mentioned that why not play Kai Green in left back, and he was played there in this game, and I think he looked fine. We also had Connor Donovan, Omar Ontiveros, Todd Warden, Nicolas Perea, Pablo Aguilar, Aldo Quintanilla, Chuy Enriquez, and Carlos Esmal. That was the starting 11 for RGVFC. For Sacramento, he had Josh Cohen, Horde, Gomez, Tainter, Schmidt, Jeremy Hall, who scored the second goal, Bijev, Jaime Villarreal, Luis Vasquez, Cameron Iwasa, and Majasic. By the way, Cameron Iwasa's goal, which was the first goal of Sacramento's of Sacramento, that was his 27th, and that broke the club record of all-time score for Sacramento Republic. So it was a very, very important goal for Iwasa and for the Sacramento Republic fans. Just wanted to put it out there, why it was celebrated the way it was. If you guys saw the broadcast, but yeah, go on, Jacob.
And so one thing that I really want to point out here is that in the whole lineup, you don't see Bryce Marion on the bench. A couple of times that we have won a game was on the pitch, not starting or starting. My point being, comes down to defense, move the play forward. And of course, he wasn't on the. That's a bit of a frustrating thing that coach saw something in James over Marion, something in James over someone else that really could have replaced him for a better roster. Of course, I'm not coached. That's something to look at.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on with this roster that we don't know of? Because also, the last game that Cabrera Jr. was in, he was fantastic. He was a phenomenal, even sub, if I'm not mistaken, if he didn't start.
No,
So-
this was the first time that he was benched. Every other game before, in the last couple of weeks, Cabrera was the starter for this team.
I was about to say he was subbed into this one. No,
Yes, he was. No, he
No?
was not subbed in. He was in the bench. And
he rode the bench the whole game, right?
Yes. So the substitutes were Nico Cordy, Kyle Adams, Manny Padilla, Jorginho James, Matias Saldivar, Wilmer Cabrera Jr., and Monday Etem. Monday Etem was the one that was subbed in.
There we
the,
go.
In the 77th minute. Now, my question is, and you brought it up, Bryce Marion. I mean, who would you, besides the obvious of Jorginho James, we keep on talking about it. Who would you replace Bryce Marion with in this lineup? I mean, a team is a striker. Nico Cordy, obviously, is the goalkeeper. Kyle Adams, defender. Manny Padilla, the right back. Jorginho James, excuse me.
Sorry, excuse me.
Whoa, gonna have to cut that out. Sorry, guys, in the stream. This is completely live. Just letting y'all know, this is completely
The
live.
mic was still on.
Anyways. So what I was saying is, so Nico Cordy's a goalkeeper. You had Kyle Adams, Manny Padilla, Jorginho James is a center defensive midfielder. Matias Saldivar, who can either play on the wing or can play as a center defensive midfield. Oh, look, watch those ratings go down. Anyways. Wilmer Cabrera Jr. Who plays as a striker. Monday Etem plays as a striker as well. Would you replace either Cabrera or Monday Etem just to put in Bryce Marion?
That's a hard one.
Technically, yes, because guess what? Cabrera Jr. in practice, even, and he will get a ton of game time next year. Of course, and even it could have been this year. We could have gotten rid of Jorginho James throughout this year, just like we got rid of players named Charlie Ward and other players that could have actually been useful. Actually replace Cabrera Jr. just to put in Bryce Marion, because guess what? Both of those players playing on the same team the following year and probably be a great duo as well.
But think about it this way. Okay, so you want to get rid of Jorginho James. Let's look at. Okay, so we're looking at the substitute list right here, right? So we only have one center defensive midfielder, which is Jorginho. And what you're saying is get rid of Jorginho to put in Bryce Marion in this bench. But we know that Saldívar does not have much defensive capability. Neither does Cabrera. Neither does it Tim. And you had to bench AJ De La Garza at halftime because you don't want to push him too much. He's barely coming back of a knee injury. So we know that Manny Padilla with AJ De La Garza substitute was going to be a given. Other than that, in the end, you took out Aldo Quintanilla and Carlos Small. You brought it. Now, my question is, kind of a little change of subject. Why did you take out Carlos Small for Jorginho? Yes, for Jorginho. Where was the logic in it? Why are you getting rid? You already have three defensive mids, or three mids. You have Perea, you have Todd Warden, and you have Pablo Aguilar, who in the beginning you played him as a defensive mid because the Dynamo says, oh, that's where most of his capabilities. That's where we see most of his capabilities. So you have three. You're playing with three mids. You're adding a fourth one. You're adding a fourth one with Jorginho. I don't see the logic in that substitute. We lost a lot of attacking opportunities by getting rid of Carlos Small. Obviously, I'm not the coach. I'm not getting paid anything. But, I think the better sub would have been, if you wanted to bring in Monday Etem, should have been for Carlos Small. Because if you're playing him on the wing, I think Monday Etem would have, I think either that or you can sub in Matias Saldívar, which you've played him many times out in the wing.
Exactly, and me as well. You're going to leave on Kyle Adams. What's happening as well? Take away James Adams as well, or someone like that, because we understand he's been playing terribly. He's got the Albert Ellis, as I like to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Ellis, but it's whatever because we all know that's true. It's the striker. So, just like Kyle Adams, I've seen him play before, and he was actually good. Good at the position that he is, because trying something different instead of putting on Padilla was a smart sub to the De La Garza situation. Monday a team, as in he should have been for Small. But why is Small as well getting subbed off in the 58th minute? That's not, yes, it's closer to the 60th. Small could have played for at least 10 more minutes.
Definitely. I understand he's coming from preseason, but honestly, I can't say anything because I'm not there in practice. You're not there in practice. Cesar isn't there in practice.
Definitely not.
So we don't know what his fitness level is right now. Only coach knows. So if he feels that he only has enough gas for 60 minutes now, all right, fine. We'll let that slide. We understand. But why settle back? You're winning 1-0. Actually, scratch that. I have an idea why he wanted to bring in Jorginho. And that is because Sacramento was starting to get a lot more possession and it was being dangerous. However, if that was the case, why not sacrifice Pablo? if you needed to sacrifice an attacking player to bring in a more defensive-minded player, why not sacrifice Pablo?
That would have been the smart substitution as well.
Because we see it many times with the Dynamo. You know?
Exactly.
You take out Tomas Martinez and you bring in Eric Alexander. Or you bring in Eric Bird. Or you bring in either Boney or what's his name? Who's usually partner? Either Darwin Seren. You know, but you try to keep your top three, your Kyoto, your Release, your Morrow, as long as you can until you can see that they're extremely tired or they're starting to lose their focus of the game, and you bring in Ronaldo Peña or you bring in Luis Gil. You know, because that's where your most danger is. With us, our biggest danger is Chuy, Aldo, and Small. That's our tridente right there. Right?
Yes, that is our big three right there. It's no reason for us to take them off, especially almost simultaneously.
Yeah.
You said you bring off Pablo Aguilar, you get someone else that can help with the defense, but you keep Aldo, you keep Small. Really asks for a substitution because he's cramping up. That's understandable, but the rest of it, just credit him for at least keeping on Todd Wharton. If Todd Wharton was gone, it would be a chaotic team in the second half. Luckily, it wasn't that chaotic, but it could have. He didn't sub him off.
Although, you know, I do have to give credit where credit is due to the guys, and that is they fought until the end. They fought until the 96th minute. They were close to getting the equalizing goal, but it just wasn't enough, and I felt it was too little, too late. I think they started reacting when it was already like 85th minute. You know, why wait until you're 2-1 down and you're I don't know. I mean, it wasn't as bad as last year's match, but I still think that game management just wasn't there for the team. You can say because it's a very young, inexperienced team. I can give you that. But once again, I mean, I feel that Jorginho has given all that he could, and he's reached his limit. And I think with the potential that this team has, they have left them behind. I guess you can say that. Thankfully, he is on a loan. He should go back to. He is going back to Jamaica by December, according to Transfer Market. But I think if there's going to be a position which the Dynamo really needs to focus on for next year, is we need depth in the central defensive midfield. We need somebody that will be able to come in case Todd Wharton gets called up or Todd Wharton or Nico Perea get injured, that'll come in and will at least be more consistent whenever he is called up, and a lot more. I guess you can say. Trying to see. So more consistent and a little bit more soccer savvy. I think Jorginho, and I've mentioned many times, Jorginho is a player that is strong, but he doesn't know how to use his strength. There have been many times where he does dumb fouls because he doesn't know how to use his strength, like he lifts his elbow too far, or any other examples like that. And he's gotten yellows, he's gotten reds due to that situation. And like I said as well, passes, completely erroneous passes that go straight to the attacker. And so I think we need to add to that baseline. And in my opinion, I think that Jorginho, if he wants to prove that he wants to stay, he wants to his loan renewed for next season, he has to do better than that. He has to give it his 100% in practice at games. Learn from the best. You know, if you need, ask Todd Warden, hey, what do I need to improve? Ask Coach Echeverry. Take advantage that AJ De La Garza is hopefully be getting a couple more matches with Toros. Ask him for some pointers. You know, that's what these experienced Dynamo players. I mean, how much experience does AJ De La Garza have? I mean, he's been for years in MLS. He's represented. I believe he's represented the U.S. national team, and then lately represented Guam national team. He's won championships with LA Galaxy. So the guy is one of the elites in MLS. I mean, take advantage of that. You got Tyler Derrick as well. Yes, he's a goalkeeper, but I mean, what you're talking about an MLS caliber keeper that knows, he's been with the Dynamo system long enough. He knows what kind of midfielders are expected from the Dynamo system, especially with Wilmer Cabrera. I mean, take advantage of those opportunities. It's like with us in school. When I was in school, you in high school. Okay, you don't understand something. I mean, there's tutors, there's the teachers. Go and ask. Okay, what do I need to improve? I want to show that I belong here. What do I need to improve? You know, there's still time, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's got some rust that he needs to shake off. I give him the benefit of the doubt. But so far this season, I think I've been more disappointed in his performances than I have been pleased by his performances.
Yeah, and you go back to even the Tyler Derrick thing. We talked about it before, how Tyler Derrick knows his way around the Houston Dynamo organization, whether it would be RHBFC or even it would be. And what I'm trying to get by this is, if someone's not performing for them, and I'm pretty sure after the game, if his relationship is with Jerson, starting, so it must be pretty good. And AJ De La Garza was probably able to give us a bit of a speech, especially the midfield. Get your act together. There's no reason for them to be playing like that until the 80th minute, where they're like, oh crap, we're still down 2-1 and we need to actually play soccer. Let's play soccer now. Down for a whole 60 or so minutes in the second half, where we can't score a second goal, which is pretty simple to do considering that we had possession before you lost it.
So
you have to get this team shaped up, to use it correctly.
Yeah. You there, Jacob? Hello?
Did he cut out?
I think. Are you there, Jacob?
I am here.
Okay. It seemed for a little bit that it wanted to cut off on my end. But so let's go ahead and let's look at the first goal. The highlights are available on YouTube. But there are a couple of things that I want to get from the first Sacramento goal. So, number one, at the moment where the ball is played, you have 7 defenders inside the box. And there are only 4 attackers by Sacramento. I'm just leaving that there. Just let that sink in. 7 defenders against 4 attackers. Right away, there's one thing I can say. Who is marking that attacker that is right in front of Tyler Derrick? Why is there nobody marking him? Number 1. Number 2, you have Todd Warden and Kai Green covering Iwasa and another player. That's fine. And you got, I believe, that is it? Hold on. I think it's Carlos. I think it's no, because he already had the white or the yellowish paint, or his hair is kind of like dyed bleach blonde now. But whoever it was, so there's another defender there that is covering another Sacramento right in the penalty spot, right? So we move forward on that play, and you see when the cross comes in, you have Pablo Aguilar, who is out a little bit inside the box in the half line, or in the half moon. You have 2 players, Jorginho James, and I wish this was in high definition. So you got 2 defenders that are in front of an unmarked player. You have another one guarding right outside the box. You have Todd. Okay, so you have Todd guarding nobody. He's not marking anybody. You have Connor. So you have Connor Donovan and Kai Green dealing with 2. One of them is the number 4, which is let me get you the name of that player. You have one guarding Taintor, and that is Connor, and you have Kai Green that is supposed to be covering Cameron Iwasa. Cameron Iwasa, on his run, is able to leave Kai Green behind on the run, able to intercept the ball with his head, and cross the shot at the other side of Tyler Derrick. Tyler Derrick tries to make the save, but he doesn't get to it quickly enough. But what I'm most worried about is the fact that we have so many defenders that are supposed to be marking somebody, and it was just a mess. Marking was just a mess. And if it wasn't Cameron Iwasa, it could have been somebody else that was ended up being unmarked. It's just sloppy defending by the Toros there. And, I mean, we're almost at the end of the season and we're still making these mistakes. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, but what I've already basically noticed is that it's really only happening on the road. Yes, we haven't won a road game, really. In those lapses, I guess, on the road, I'm kind of noticing that the lineups are changed on the road. So it doesn't help that you don't have that same chemistry that you once had when you were playing at home. And now with a different lineup, you're starting, let's say, Todd Warden and Aldo Quintanilla, but you brought in Drew Enriquez was starting instead of, let's say, Aguilar or something like that.
But these are players that have been here for almost all the season. I don't really think that's an excuse, because this pretty much would be the starting lineup in any other game. Besides Carlos Esmal, who barely came in, this lineup would have been a starting lineup, especially early in the season. I mean, not counting AJD, not counting Tyler Derrick as well, but everybody else was pretty much a starter for some part of the season. So you can't really say like, oh, it's because they don't have chemistry. These players have played have played on a game before. It's not that. It's just we go back. Mental mistakes. And it just for some reason in American soccer, and I'm not just talking about USL, but also MLS, just take a look at the Dynamo. It just seems that American teams just cannot get it together when they're playing away. Is home field advantage extremely important in the United States? We don't know. Is it the fact that that traveling makes it a lot more difficult, a lot more tiring? Maybe. But there's something in the American system of soccer that affects teams greatly when they play away, that they don't demonstrate their best soccer at the matches. And that teams here in the United States, that's why it's very important to win games at home. It technically should be easier, which makes the fact that we have tied a lot at home a lot more troubling once you think about it in hindsight. Because you're talking about a lot of these teams have to make a really long trip from out in the middle of the country or from the West Coast down south to the Rio Grande Valley. 90-degree weather, very humid. You would assume that is a lot of advantage being granted to the team. But yet for a long time, the attack just couldn't get balls in. Defenders doing a great job. But the attack just wasn't there. When we go away, we lose that home advantage. They get that home advantage. And it just seems that it's like a flick of a switch. Our defense, what do I do? I mean, it's almost like they forget to mark. I mean, I just don't know. I can't explain it. Can't explain it with the Toros. I can't explain it with the Dynamo either. And I guess it's gotten to a point where we just kind of have to deal with it because it's a common denominator in American soccer.
Yeah, and let's not forget that this game could have easily been canceled. It wasn't the best game for either team to be breathing in the air that was, because let me just be clear, if the sun sets and it's red, that there's a problem. Smoke in the air and ashes and all this other dirty stuff that not air that you should be breathing in. Mm-hmm. So of course, yeah, I don't want to give them of the Toros that much of a defense there, because either way you should still be playing soccer. The only difference is, of course, advantage for Sacramento. An advantage to where it just they can play in it because they're used to it, because they've been breathing each game. So they're kind of used to that. And of course, it doesn't help that game should not have been played.
Yeah, but the whole Ash thing, that affects both teams. So that you can't really say that it's an advantage for Sacramento because nobody's used to breathing ash and pollutants, that much of a concentration of pollutants that's in the atmosphere. Nobody's used to it. You can't really say that that's an advantage because it affects both equally. And the mistakes that they made in both goals, it wasn't because they were tired. These were mental mistakes that they went into a lapse and just forgot how to defend. It wasn't because they were tired. You know, it was because they had a mental lapse, and that's what affected them. And it's been a constant throughout the whole season. Before we go on to the next, actually, Now, if we look at the second goal, I do want, before we move on to what A.J. De La Garza said, let's take a look at the second goal.
Which was pretty much similar. It was a set piece, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. And who was supposed to mark Hall? I'll let y'all take a guess.
Well, let me see if I can see that replay.
Jorginho James.
Jorginho James.
Exactly. That was just horrible marking. That was not tight marking. That was extremely loose marking. So before the ball is even played, he is not even looking at what attacker he should defend from. He is just looking at who's going to take the shot. All he does is look around like once on each side, and he just continues to just stand there and hop in place. Continue. He looks confused. By the time he realizes that Hall is right next to him, that made the run from behind him to right next to him, it's too late for him to respond. Just look at his movements. He sees that Hall is right next to him and is going to get to the ball first. And he tries to make a desperate movement, but it really wasn't like, I don't know if you understand me, but it wasn't a movement like to try to defend. It was more like, let me just put my body out there and see hopefully if I can block the shot. He by the time he reacted, it was too late to make the attacker uncomfortable, to make his jump uncomfortable. Because if you notice, Jorginho does not jump. All he does is like kind of do a little hop.
Kind of stick his leg out.
Yes, exactly. He made no intention because he was going to be too late. He made no intention to try and get to the ball before Jeremy Hall was able to hit it in. Why? Late reactions. Why?
He got caught ball watching too.
Exactly. 100% correct right there, Cesar. He was ball watching, wasn't aware of his environment, and that's how we got the second goal against us. That is something that is not acceptable in a professional player.
Look at Tyler Derrick. He's thinking that Jorginho is going to make that stop. He's looking to make sure that happens, and then also has to react late because he sees the defender not do his job. And that's, of course, he tips the ball.
Yeah, he got a hand to it.
Late.
Oh, he got yes, exactly.
Derrick's fault, not at all, because the defender should have been there to help stop it.
Yes, because the location where the ball was placed was in between the penalty spot and the 6-yard line. That is an area that the goalkeeper should not go to. So that is the area where it's the defender's job to make sure to intercept that ball and head it away before it reaches the attacker. It didn't happen. Obviously, it caught Tyler Derrick off guard because he expects, and going back to the fact that he is an MLS caliber player, he expects his defenders to be able to go up there, intercept that ball, get it out of there. Jorginho James doesn't do it. He has to make a quick reaction to try to get to the ball. Manages to get to it, but it just wasn't enough to make the save. 100% not Tyler Derrick's fault.
The
same thing would have happened had it been Nico Cordy, had it been Matt Sanchez, or had it been Michael Nelson.
And looking at it now, it was a pretty even set piece because we had 1, 2, 3, 4. It was basically a 5-on-5. Everybody had a man that was marked in the box, except for Jorginho, who again was caught ball watching.
Yeah, it's just
Derrick couldn't do anything to that. He had a late reaction. His judgment was there. It's just Jorginho could not, react to it enough.
So, Cisco's just told us via the chat that he says, not sure if you saw, but Victor Araiza posted a pic just a while ago of Tyler Derrick back in training with the Dynamo tonight.
So he went back already?
That's what it seems like.
Huh.
Which means that he went back up sooner than I thought. And
Sooner than I expected, that's
yeah,
for sure.
exactly. Because we figured that maybe he was going to be here for the rest of the season. And we don't know. Maybe, because you know what happens. You know, that they're up here, and then like 1 or 2 days before the match, okay, you're going down to RGV. But what's today? Thursday. If
A
anything,
day away from home game.
yeah, if anything, he might leave tomorrow, but that might mean that it might be Nick O'Cordy that's going to start on Saturday. I think he's going to do the rest of his training, since he already got a little bit of match fitness. I think it's going to be like, well, okay, so now the Dynamo can continue to allow me to. Jordy says that Connor Donovan is also training with the Dynamo. So this looks like a Kyle Adams, Omar Tiveros pairing, or Kyle Adams, Robert Castellanos pairing in the back on Saturday. And I'm not worried about Connor. I'm not worried about Derek. Because at home, the defenders are doing decent, and Tyler Derek is pretty much a third, fourth string keeper. What I am surprised is that we figured that Tyler Derek would be here in the long run because, he would help, I guess he would help out, being a mentor to these young kids. But looks like looks like he wants to continue his comeback with the Dynamo. I don't know why. I mean, we have Willis, we have Chris Seitz. Only the Dynamo knows. And I just hope that the team, the Toros, took advantage of every little minute that Tyler Derek was down there, and took advantage to at least learn something and to fix something, and learn from his experiences. Speaking of experience, let's go ahead and listen to part. So this is the beginning of the interview that Sean and I with Generation Orange had with AJ De La Garza. And in the beginning, Sean asked him about what he saw from our GVFC. So let's take a listen and see what he had to say.
All right, so AJ, first of all, welcome to Generation Orange. We appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to answer a few questions we have. And first of all, I just want to let you know that beyond just Francisco, who I know you've been talking to, but us on the show, Edson and myself, and then a lot of our followers, between all of us, you're probably one of our top one Dynamo player. We follow your fan favorite by far, mostly because of your takedown of FC Dallas. That instantly made you the best Dynamo player in our eyes.
Nice. Well, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Anytime whatsoever. So first question, we know that you were down with RGV this past weekend for a match. And just so you're aware, Edson also does a RGV podcast / internet show.
Okay.
So he was super excited to see you down there. And so we were just kind of curious, in regards to the match and being down there, flying out kind of so quickly and then returning back to Houston so quick, what's your takeaway from your time with RGV, that one match? Are you probably going to be back there for a couple more matches? And then also kind of along the same lines, were there any players at RGV from a young player standpoint that stood out to you positively?
Yeah, to answer your first question, I'm not sure exactly what the plan is at this moment. If I'll be going down there or if I'll be playing back with Dynamo. And obviously that's kind of a competitive edge as well. Don't tell your opponents where you're going. But honestly, I don't even know where I'm going at this point. Today was the first day back after the game. So, I'm sure the coaches have a lot of other things on their minds. And everyone's trying to wrap their head around this weekend. And to the second question, there's a lot of good talent out there. And you can see it when you play in even Open Cup games, when you're playing USL teams, that there's talent. Just the difference is the amount of talent, spread throughout the entire roster, or just the consistency of the younger players or inconsistency of them. The thought process of thinking, actually, I can tell a lot. And guys coming from USL coming to MLS training, they can tell that it's just another level above USL. But there's a lot of young kids who are getting a lot of exposure and experience. So hopefully they can all take it well and continue to progress.
Did you happen to school any of the younger kids?
So, what did you think of his words in regards to USL?
Well, I mean, it's pretty crazy how the first thing is he said, I don't know what the plan is going forward. I don't know if I'm going to be back in RGV even for this weekend. Really what he said like that. We've heard that before. And it's always just a sad thing because we don't want our players almost jet lagged in a way. I know you can't really get jet lagged when you're in the same time zone, but traveling is still tiring.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that there's no real planning going on. That maybe they'll need them last minute. Not really understandable.
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way. I mean, that was recorded on Monday night. AJ was here in Houston. He was practicing with the Dynamo. So he went from Sacramento and came down to Houston, practiced with Houston, and he's telling me, I don't know. Now, another reason might be like, you know what? Well, I can't really say out in public. Like, if I'm going down to the RGV, might be some sort of a policy by the Dynamo. I don't know. But still, if you take his words literally, it doesn't seem right for chemistry purposes to be like, oh, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I should prepare. I mean, we know that we assume that he's still not ready yet to start with MLS. Don't know. And so he's already going to start with USL. So you would assume, okay, maybe one more match with AJD with the Toros. And then maybe we'll see if he's ready for MLS. You would assume, right? You would assume that he's going to stay down with the Toros, continue practicing. Because if I recall correctly, later on in fact, it was right after where I cut off. Shauna, you know how Shauna asked him if he had schooled one of the young guys there in practice, and he said, "Well, I didn't really have time to be in there because I only had 1 or 2 practice sessions with the team." Where have we heard that before? Eric Bird when he came in the beginning of the season. Eric Bird, it was a 10:30 a.m. match. He went down to Edinburgh to HEB Park the night before. Why is it being done like that? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. With somebody with common sense, even somebody who's not in the sporting world, in the soccer world, in the club world, common sense dictates that you can't really expect much understanding, chemistry from a player that just came in the night before and is going to start the match. The other guys don't know how you play, especially with such a young and new squad this year. You need them to get used to how the other person plays. AJ De La Garza does not play like Manny Padilla. AJ De La Garza does not play like Kai Green.
Exactly. AJ De La Garza plays obviously much better than them. it all depends, of course, on how he's going to come back from this injury, which we think he's going to come back even stronger and faster and better. That's obviously on the plus side. But yes, the problem is with these types of players, we've talked about it even with Sean, that it's not okay for them to have this last minute say where you're going to RGV, pack your bags right now, you're leaving in an hour. I'm there. You might have one practice with them to get to know the guys or whatever. And you're going straight basically into the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay for that.
Cesar?
What? Then I don't know if this comes back to the whole problem with Dynamo having every say so in the decision making on who to send, who to bring up, and RGV not having, well, really much of a choice as to whether who to bring in or not. Mm-hmm. But we have seen this a lot, and this is an ever changing roster. I mean, they're constantly coming back and forth. But for AJ De La Garza to say that again, I'm not surprised. For him to say, "Oh, I've only had so and so little time to get a feel for the team. I don't have much experience." And he is right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, and it's one of the things that I would like for somebody from the Dynamo to tell us, explain why it's being done like that. Why is it done like that? Why is it all in the last minute? Why do they not reach a consensus and say, okay, these players are going to be going down Monday. Okay, all right, these players are going to be going down. Okay, Tuesday. All right, you guys are heading down in the valley already. Get Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, practice with them, get to know the team. That way, by Saturday, you got a better understanding how each other plays. And the second thing that he said was, there's talent in the USL. The question is, how is that talent spread out through the roster, and the inconsistency of this talent in the USL?
And it's not, well, right now, from my point of view, it isn't spread out, at all. But with the inconsistencies of players going back and forth, I mean, who gets the last word in, and who decides to stay and who to go?
I would assume that's Cabrera. When we can ask Sean when he comes on at 8:30. He might have a better idea of how that works, if anything. But even that, I think they keep it. It's something that is kept very secret. So we can only assume pretty much why these decisions are made like that.
Right.
I'm gonna guess for this whole thing of how it started is one player from Houston Dynamo was going to help, let's say, the reserves at that time or whoever, and slipped it out from when a media asked him a question. And I mean, we've seen it happen before, and that's why I guess they're not even, front office isn't even allowed to tell the player that they are leaving in advance, because that might happen again.
Mm-hmm. It's something that's really, really complicated, but it's because the Dynamo technical team just makes it difficult for themselves and for everybody in the system. Simplicity is a lot of times better and more. It'll be more efficient. I mean, that's the way I see it. Cisco, that's Cesar. He's also part of down in the valley as well. But I invited him over to kind of give his thoughts as well. He usually is the one that does photographs at the games.
Hello.
So, and then my dad says, the way I see it, Dynamo dictates the lineup according to their needs. And Cisco, yes, you're right. That is the reason why RGV was set up. Now, the thing is, I mean, you can't really say, oh, it's because it's according to their need. Because now the Dynamo aren't really needing Toros players. I mean, besides with the beginning of Open Cup, who else has been called up? Nobody. Last year, they consistently called Charlie, consistently called Eric, consistently called. In 2016, they would call up Malky, Kevin, you know. So now,
Escalante.
yes, now they don't need to. Now the thing is, right now is we're getting these players as a plus. They're not really taking them away. Obviously, they're not going to be here a long time. But we just thought the way that this was panned out and their positions. I understand AJ with the defense. There's a need because of all these injuries, but he's barely coming out of an injury. So you would assume he's going to continue. He would continue to be nursed and do his rehab at RGV. You know, get some more match fitness. Tyler Derrick, obviously, he's suspended, and you got two other great goalkeepers right in front of him. So, you know, that's not really much of a need. But yeah, it's a complicated situation, like I said, because the Dynamo wants it to be like that. The Dynamo wants it very complicated. We talked about it in Generation Orange. There's no transparency with the Dynamo system. There's none at all. And I think that's a problem for all of us because we don't know exactly why it works and we can only make assumptions. Sometimes those assumptions are wrong, which leads us to make hasty decisions.
And we're practically left in the dark.
Definitely. But this isn't just something that affects RGV. This is affecting the Dynamo as well. Because, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
The fact is, like, okay, something is asked. Let's say I ask, because I know I've asked it before, or Victor, or at its time, Corey, or the new correspondent from the Chronicle asked him, okay, what's going on with Juan David Cabezas? Or what's going on with Max Steves? Oh, he's doing good, blah, 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 blah. The same generic response about, oh, he's rehabilitating, he's doing good. I think with Juan David Cabezas, like, he did mention, like, oh, well, he got a minor setback of 2 weeks, but he'll be back soon. And then, all of a sudden, oh, Juan David Cabezas is in Colombia. Where did that come from? Like, this is all unexpected. You know? So, RGV fans, just rest assured that this is a Dynamo thing. This isn't, oh, they have it against the Toros. No. They have it against, they do it with their own media as well. So it's something that it just isn't surprising. The lack of transparency makes us feel like we're in the dark. And I don't blame you all. But Dynamo fans feel the same way about this organization, how it's being run like that. So I think for now we can only deal with it, but consistently push, like Coach Cabrera said. But this was with the refs. But I think this applies for this instance as well. The media, the fans need to pressure the Dynamo to be more transparent, because this isn't just affecting the Dynamo, this is affecting Toros, and this is affecting Brazos Valley Cavalry. And the Dash in its own in its way as well. The lack of transparency is not good. I think we as fans deserve to be at least mildly, we don't need to know all the deets, right? But at least we need to know enough to see what's going on, what can we expect. Because we've been expecting Juan David Cabezas for I don't know how many months, and he never came. Then all of a sudden he's in Colombia for a whole month. And it had to be from Colombian media that we found out that Juan David Cabezas was over there rehabilitating. Because nothing was mentioned by Wilmer Cabrera about that aspect. Because they don't give it. We never found out about Max Steves getting hip surgery had it not been for his Instagram story. One of the guys from the media, I was there one of the Dynamo matches. I told him, I mentioned him about it. I was like, hey, well, did you see that Max Steves got hip surgery? It's like, no. I was like, well, where'd you see that? Well, I saw it from his Instagram story, and I wanted to say something, but I just didn't have time or know how to put it, because we know they always get the generic responses. And he told me, and this is I am not lying when he said, next time you see something like that, take a screenshot or record it, because I know that if you ask Wilmer or somebody about that, they're going to deny it, or they're going to say, where did you see that? For something as serious like hip surgery. So, point is, need to understand that there are some things that this organization lacks, and it comes from the Dynamo. But I think it's our responsibility as fans of RGV, as fans of the Dynamo, and us as media, to, hey, you know what? Enough's enough. I think we deserve, or at least we think we deserve at least more information about what's going on with the team, whether it's the Dynamo, whether it's the Toros, whether it's the Dash.
And for the longest time, I thought it was just us. As in us, I mean, Toros fans. But now that you brought it up, I see it now.
Jacob?
Exactly. So another person, Cisco, once again, you see it all the time with the Astros and the Hooks. Perea was the most recent example. Last season, Altuve will be the next. So it's just, it's not good in every organization, but that doesn't mean that it's a good thing that you see these things last minute to where it can devastating.
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating to know that even to a player's standpoint, just put it in their perspective. Last minute getting told to pack up their stuff. Once again, they're going down to the RGV for us, or to pack up their stuff. They're going to Houston to play in an Open Cup game or something like that. So, traveling is still tiring. I'm going to put that out there. Traveling is tiring. Don't make them travel more than they have to.
How's it going, Sean?
Even if it is just from Houston to RGV, they're still going to have some effect on them.
Yeah, definitely. So that's pretty much it. I say, like I said, that was what AJ De La Garza mentioned about RGV. Just some things that pretty much were kind of caught our eyes, and we were talking about that. AJ had no idea what was next. He had no idea if he was going to go back with RGV. Or, I mean, we know that Monday was, I know that look. We know that Monday he was here in Houston. Mm-hmm. And Cisco just told me that Tyler Derrick's here, as well as Connor Donovan.
Yeah. Yeah. They did.
Wait, I didn't even know.
He just kind of cut off.
No, he just said that. He didn't even know.
It doesn't surprise me, though, because we also found out earlier this week it wasn't talking to AJ, it was something else, somebody else, that, and this is where I go, oh, well, that actually starts to make sense. The reason why players don't practice with RGV is because RGV doesn't do the tape study that Dynamo do with the opposing teams, and also a study of their own work. And when you have a player that's at the professional level, you want them studying that professional level of, player, just in terms of preparing team over, team each week, if there's a possibility that they might play. And you just never know in practice who could pick up a knock. So it could be Friday practice tomorrow, and you could have 3 defenders that go down, and now suddenly Connor Donovan's called into action, or AJ's called into action, or, whatever. So when I thought through that process, especially, realizing that they do tape review on Monday, and then I believe they also do tape review later in the week. I just don't know which day it is. It makes sense that some of those players would still be here. It may also be that maybe those players are going to get an opportunity to play, even if it's just sub minutes. It may also be that they don't feel like Connor Donovan is really supplying enough down there, and they maybe Gerson likes what he has down there in terms of defenders. Ontiveros is playing pretty well for the most part, and it's kind of hard to supplant him or help me out here.
Kyle Adams.
Thank you. From their center back positions and disrupt their player development when Connor can get the player development here and still continue to
Go
grow.
to the next level.
And still continue to grow.
My question, or our question in regards to that, wasn't much about Connor for the same reason. Because we know that Connor Donovan, I think he can get better development here, and we have good enough players down there on the defense, at least at home.
Yeah.
At least at home.
Yeah.
That they'll get the job done, whether it's Ontiveros, whether it's Kyle Adams, or Robert Castellanos.
Correct.
The biggest surprise that we had is that Tyler Derrick so soon having, he was technically on a loan down to RGV, and he's already here.
Yeah, I heard shortly after everything had taken place, and it was announced that he was, or not announced, but he was loaned to RGV, that they were the Dynamo were basically going to give him 3 weeks / 3 matches. And I think we've hit that 3-match mark since he's been there. So they're on that timeline with him. And it doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to be starting for the senior team. It doesn't mean he's going to take over Joe's spot. But let's be frank, the Dynamo have struggled defensively in certain points and matches. And one of the things is when Tyler Derrick was in there last season, the Dynamo didn't tend to struggle in those matches. And so I think the idea is now that he's kind of got back to match fitness, he's got back to the match mentality, he's seen plenty of saves, which is why they did the 3-match, 3-week mark. I think they also know that they have upcoming is a very short. There's a bunch of matches in a row again that are it's not just week to week. Where there's a couple of double game weeks in the next month and a half, and it's also the press for playoffs. And so you want everybody that's available to be as close to that possibility, to be as much in that as possible. And you kind of said it. I mean, yes, it's going to be a drop off for RGV going from Tyler back to either Michael Nelson or Nico Cordy. But at some point, those guys have to step up. And I feel like, honestly, if we were being really honest, Michael Nelson at this point is already better than Nico Cordy is. I think Michael Nelson tends to, not always, but tends to make better decisions and tends to be better coming out on set pieces, coming out and claiming the ball.
Yes.
And so, I think also there's some of the idea that they want to get Tyler back into the Dynamo side, not in terms of starting, not in terms of even really being a sub, but just in terms of practicing with the team, because he's got to build that comfort level with the defenders again. And being out for a year, 9.5 months, you lose a lot of that, connection. And he didn't have as much time with Senderos.
Fuenmayor.
No time with Fuenmayor. No time with Lundqvist. And so he needs to get time with these players. And, and sure, AJ is coming back, and that's also good that AJ was down there at the same time Tyler was, because that gets them that comfort level again. 2 players that really have already played together, but they're comfortable with one another. And so I think there's a lot of that to take into account too, is that it's not just one reason. There's a list of things and a list of considerations that they have to make, and when it comes down to it, it's better for the Dynamo to pull him up now and get him reacclimated into the team in the event that Joe has a problem, or in the event that they say, hey, he's ready, let's push him and let's put him out there and see what happens. I don't think he takes over Joe's spot this season yet, but I do think they want to get that familiarity with the defenders.
So just kind of like a little parentheses, I really would like to talk about on Tuesday for Gen Orange. If we have time, we can talk about what would be the future of Chris Seitz.
That is a very good question, and absolutely agreed.
Okay.
We should definitely bring that up.
Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying in regards to making sure, like, if he wants to get themselves acclimated with this
Well,
defensive
here's the
line
other thing,
because
right?
okay, so let me just finish.
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
have to
sorry,
say.
go ahead.
No worries.
I was going to give you some other reason why
Because
you
we were
shouldn't worry.
talking about in the second goal that Sacramento scored against us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't remember if it was Cesar or if it was Jacob that brought up the fact that Tyler Derrick in that free kick was expecting Jorginho James to intercept the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But when Jorginho James didn't do it,
Exactly.
he had to make a
He
last
had to
minute
make a
reaction.
Yep, exactly. It's a reaction. instead of,
Because and it goes back to your saying, there just really weren't that. He's just
there's
really
no
wasn't.
familiarity.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no familiarity. He hasn't played with Jorginho enough to know what his tendencies are, how he's going to come out, if he's going to stay. The other flip side of it, and I think it's important to keep this in mind too, especially when it comes to goalkeepers and defenders specifically. AJ pointed out the gulf in talent, not talent, but the gulf in level of play, if you will, and that it was a big step from USL to MLS. And I think it's really important to know that from a player's perspective, because when you think about it, you want Tyler preparing, if he's got his 3 weeks at USL and he's shown comfortable, which he has, he's looked pretty solid. He's made some great saves, which show the athleticism and show his football intelligence as far as a goalkeeper goes, his goalkeeper awareness, positional awareness, that sort of thing. But the thing to keep in mind is that they also want to see him at that speed of MLS versus the speed of USL. He's got to get to that point, and they have to know what they have in him before this offseason comes, because that's going to tie into what you were just talking about, which is the Dan Seitz. I always forget his first name. Chris Seitz? Chris Seitz. I always forget Seitz's first name. No joke. I'm always like, it's Dan. And I'm like, that's not right. But one other thing I wanted to say, also keep in mind, and Dynamo fans are going to kill me over this, and it's totally okay because this is not a Dynamo show. But keep in mind, the Dynamo are nearing that point where they're going to be completely mathematically out of the playoffs at some point very soon. And if that happens, those players that are kind of borderline, they're going to be back with RGV. Because now I say that on the flip side, players that are showing well at RGV right now may be called up for an opportunity to show what they have if the Dynamo are completely out of the playoffs. Because at that point, you have nothing to lose by playing those young players. So it's a win-win in that regard.
Same thing goes with RGV, because we are pretty much nearing that point where we're going to be out of the playoffs.
Yeah, but the team will still play. The players still have something to play for. In MLS, once you're out of the playoffs, the only thing you're playing for is you're playing for two things. You're playing for pride, and you're playing to knock other teams out of the playoffs and be the team that knocked them out. Mm-hmm. Other than that, well, in the 2 Frisco matches we have coming up next week and the following week after that, and I think that's another reason why those players are up too, is because that Frisco match is next week. And
it's going to be on Thursday, right?
It's no, the first one's a Saturday match. We play Saturday here, and then we turn around and it's a whatever day of the week it is up there in Frisco. And no, it's not a Thursday. It's like a Monday or Tuesday because it's the holiday weekend. They tried to get it on the holiday weekend. I want to say it's September 3rd. Sounds right.
So
Maybe September 6th.
Houston versus FC Dallas, Thursday the 23rd at 8 p.m.
It is.
And that's the home one.
Okay, good to know. Why would they schedule? Anyways, whatever. Not gonna. Whatever. 7 p.m. kick. No, it's not. That's an 8 p.m. for that one. Who in the world thinks that's a good idea? Anyways, it's a good thing it's not an RGV match.
There's an RGV match.
I know you guys
Wednesday.
play. Well, Wednesdays aren't as bad as Thursdays. Yeah. Thursdays is just such an awkward day of the week.
That's true.
And it's our only Thursday match of the entire season. That's the weird part. Like, we have one Tuesday and one Thursday, and I think we had one Wednesday, which ended up being 2 Wednesdays. Well, only one actual MLS Wednesday, and then the rest were U.S. Open Cup. Anyways, we're getting off subject here. But my point is once the Dynamo are eliminated from the playoffs, if that happens, now if they make the play, if they're still in it until the bitter end, that's totally different. If they're knocked out, though, in the next few weeks, then I expect we'll see some shuffling of players. I think we'll see some veterans on the Dynamo sit for a couple of matches
And go down
for
or-
rest. Maybe one or two players go down to RGV for whatever, for whatever, to maybe help RGV, increase their chances, whatever it may be. But the Dynamo focus right now, as we both know, is Open Cup. That's what they're really focused on. They have a month and a week to really prep for that. And most of this month and a week is going to be spent in big-time matches between Frisco matches and this weekend's match against RSL. So ultimately what I'm getting at is there are going to be opportunities. There will be opportunities for multiple players at the RGV level and vice versa. There will be opportunities for Dynamo players to see a few minutes with RGV because maybe they're not getting time right now on the Dynamo squad. It's just going to open doors either way. But that's only if the Dynamo don't make it or the Dynamo don't have a shot at some point. And let's be frank, as close as the West is right now, as tight as these points are, if the Dynamo can string together 2 or 3 wins, they're back in it right now. But if they continue to lose, then all bets are off. It's not going to be a pretty end of the season. But, it is what it is. So we talked earlier about getting Greg Luca on. Are we getting him on next week or the week after?
next week.
Got to hype it next week. Greg Luca.
Yeah, Greg Luca's going to be back next week to have another discussion.
Is
On
that what we're
RG.
calling them? Discussions? No, I'm just
Yes.
kidding. Yeah, it'll be good.
So, Jacob,
You.
You can go play your video games.
so
It's okay.
what do you think? Seems legit.
So yeah, I heard for most. It's just that is a situation. But the only main thing, of course, I would really want to talk about Houston for there. It's going to be crazy. I mean, there's stuff in the comments as well from Cisco again that there is going to be a 3 match week coming up because of that stupid game. Which, in my opinion, let's not play them. Let's play someone else besides that crappy New York Red Bulls squad.
LAFC.
Oh, you
Already-
mean the New Jersey Pink House?
Oh.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
it, playoff stuff, it does go back. That is a win-win.
so
VFC, sure, we're probably not going to end up making the playoffs, but we're going to get some more players if, in fact, Houston does flip their game after either a win or a loss in the U.S. Open Cup.
So it's I just think it's interesting because I know Carson, and I mentioned it before in the show. Carson made a point saying that right now mathematically we are closer to being eliminated. I'm talking about RGV, going back with RGV. We're closer to being eliminated than we are making the playoffs, and really our form just does not give any good arguments for us to say that the Toros are going to make it to playoffs. So he makes it seem that the rest of the season is pretty much going to be a tryout for the 2019 season when
Yeah.
it comes for the Toros.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a matter of pride and a matter of seeing, like, telling the coach, okay, I want to stay, or you know what, I just don't want to be here.
Yeah. And there will be players that are going to be like, I'm not sticking around. I mean, that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But, the flip side of that is sometimes you need to, cull the chaff off the wheat, if you will, to find the good, find the ripe, what's there. There are some young players that are very talented that I think need to have an opportunity to play consistently. And I feel like this season there's been too much shuffling in the attack. There wasn't early on, but I also feel like the struggles early on because of the confidence factor. I feel like there were some players that, due to the confidence factor, they were never able to really rise to the occasion. And I feel like if they get that opportunity at the end of the season, they may show out really well. And so those players that have been consistently getting minutes that have struggled in the attack, those players may see themselves out, but those players that have the opportunity, I think that will give them the confidence to say, okay, I can actually like take this as my position for next year, instead of, oh, he's secured that position, he's going to be there next year, I don't even have a point to stick around.
Yeah, because we know there are some players in the attack like Guillermo Delgado,
Bryce
Derek.
Marion.
Well,
Just kidding. That was a joke.
Derek Luke on the defense.
Yeah. How hard do you say that with, like, I see the just like cringe in your face as you say it. It's like, oh, Derek Luke.
No, like John Montaño.
Yeah.
That are not really getting minutes.
Yeah.
And when they go in, it's like meh.
You're not seeing anything out of it. There's no. They're not bringing anything to the equation.
Yeah, and if you look at it from the Dynamo point of view, it's like, if they're not bringing anything to RGV, which is USL,
absolutely.
What makes you think? What makes you think that these players are gonna be worth keeping for next year?
Absolutely.
And that they're gonna be good for us.
And for some of the players, it may be that the system and the style of play.
Yes, Wilson.
The system and the style of the play at RGV / the Dynamo, because they run similar systems and similar styles of play, but it may be that those styles of play don't suit them. Mm-hmm. These players, we all agree, are fairly talented, but we also agree that they have not shown well when they've had chances, or at least not as well as we had hoped. And so some of that comes from system, some of that comes from different tactics than they're used to, some of that comes from comfort level. And that's why some players can go off to other teams at the end of a season or in the off season and be better and stronger for it, because it fits their style. It fits how they play.
Yeah.
That's not to say they aren't USL top quality. It's to say that with RGV, they're not going to reach that quality because of the way that we play, or the way that RGV plays. Yeah. Well, so where are we?
How are you doing, Ray?
Hey, Edson, how are you?
Real good.
Hey, Ray.
Hey, guys. Just upon eavesdropping on this conversation, another name can be dropped in there, as you guys use John Montaño. I'm gonna drop Tim Monday.
I was waiting for that one to come up. Actually,
he's another player who I haven't seen a lot of, and when he does come in, like, what does he show for the Toros? You know, that's one of those players that you could kind of see a tweener. Being on the outside looking in for next year's team, just upon reading Carson's report the other day, if indeed we don't get, I mean, we're gonna have to get 3 points the rest of the way, and hope to get some help along the way.
Yes.
And right now the foreseeable future is pretty bleak.
And think about it this way. So you bring out the name of Monday Tim. Keep in mind that he also takes up an international spot.
Absolutely.
So why are you going to keep him? Why are you going to keep John Montaño?
Yeah.
They're not useful to you. They've proven they're not useful.
Yeah.
Why waste an international slot for next year with them?
They're probably. I mean, they won't. I don't think there's any chance that they will. I don't think they've seen enough in practice. I don't think they've seen enough in matches to keep either of them around.
Yes.
I will say this as well. There are going to be players that are available within the USL ranks and through Dynamo scouting. Perfect example is Carlos Small. I mean, he was undoubtedly signed for RGV for at least the next couple of seasons, if not longer. He's showing really well. So what's to say the Dynamo aren't going to do the same thing in the offseason? And I know that RGV are on the brink of elimination from the playoffs, being able to make it to playoffs, but also keep in mind that the team has played better the last few weeks. Maybe not as much as we would like, but they've played better than they were playing in the first portion of the season.
And we did talk about it, right, guys? We talked about the fact that that Carlos Small has brought a huge impact to this attack.
Absolutely.
Once you get him out of the equation, once he's subbed off,
it's a totally different attack.
Exactly.
Time to park the bus.
Not only that, but even the chances that are
I didn't
that
know
are up
Wilmer
there,
was coaching the team.
But even the chances that are, or the opportunities It's just isn't
The
the same.
quality is not
Yes.
there. It's
And I mean, Chewy tries.
Yeah.
Chewy tries, and he has some really close curled shots and things like that. But he can't do everything alone. Aldo Quintanilla is going through a really bad slump right now,
Absolutely.
as well.
Well, and you know, one of the things, and it's true with the Dynamo as well, when you have this type of system, defenders will tend to key on certain players depending on their form and how they're playing at that point in the season. And so you end up where other players have opportunities. And if those other players aren't taking their opportunities, if they're not creating chances for other players, you're going to struggle. And right now, RGV's attack is kind of two-dimensional, if you will. It's not necessarily one-dimensional. There's a couple of ways they can score, but it's one-dimensional enough. And the fact that, like you said, when Carlos Small leaves the lineup or is out, it's a totally different attack. The attack just doesn't have the same potency. And so, you know, in keeping that in mind, all it takes is one player in the offseason to come in and be that link-up partner along with Chewy, along with to help bring Quintanilla, because Quintanilla is not going to go anywhere in the offseason. He's enjoyed his time at RGV. I suspect he's going to stick around. I've got a pretty good feeling on that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he's struggling. So they need to find a way to help him get out of that struggle, to get out of that rut. And sometimes players just have to play through it. Sometimes they have to just figure it out on their own.
Like Mauro.
Like Mauro Manotas is a good example. He had a serious slump last season for a half season almost. Came out of that slump and then came into this season. He's been on a tear now. He hasn't been on a huge tear. But he's definitely had a string of matches where he was one of the best strikers in the league. But also in the Dynamo system, it creates a lot of chances, but sometimes those chances are not great chances. Mm-hmm. And I think you see that at RGV. You know, it creates a good number of chances. Chances don't always equal goals, though. And chances don't always equal quality chances. And so the goal, the opportunity is there. It's just you have to have the certain caliber of player that's able to take that opportunity and stick the ball in the back of the net.
We talking set pieces too?
Of course.
Mm.
I mean, there's one thing that you all discussed. It was Chewy.
Yeah.
Partner, Bryce Marion, and even Caesar talked about it at the start of the show. On the lineup, even on the bench, because out as a sub to help Chewy maybe spark, to be exact, can really help, because Bryce even help Aldo find, or Aldo has even been able to help, have been able to help each other out with scoring goals. That could have been a key in this match, but of course did not happen.
Well, and keep this in mind. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm done with that rant.
No, I was just going to say, keep in mind, and I keep saying keep in mind because I think it's important to have perspective at this point in the season and with the struggles RGV have had. The advantage RGV have this season over, say, last season at this point in the season, which was not any more fun than it is right now. The difference is going into this offseason that you have a core of a few players in particular that can elevate this team to the next stage, to get to playoffs next season. And those players now have a familiarity with each other. We talk about the familiarity all the time on the back line. Well, just as much on the attack. You've got Chewy, you've got Bryce Marion, you've got Quintanilla, who does have that familiarity, and he'll improve. Carlos Small,
Cordy.
Sure. Players that are, elevating their game. Yeah. And so the more time they get with each other at the end of this season, that just makes next season better. But I do think, and I want to come back to this because this is something that struck me a little bit. AJ didn't exactly say this, but you kind of get the impression from him that there's a little bit of a different level of professionalism in terms of how hard players are going during practice from RGV to the Dynamo.
That's not a surprise. Todd Warden said the exact same thing.
And I think you see it in how they play the matches, but I think there's something to be said, and AJ did kind of say this, that it's a different pace at practice. I'm curious to know if that's a choice of the players, if the players are just not putting in the effort, or if that's a choice of Gerson's that he has to take into account the lowest level he has in order to not leave them completely in the dust. Because you can only elevate so far before those players no longer can keep up at all. Mm-hmm. But my intrigue here is, if it's a coach choice, then I'm not really sure that's going to improve next season if Gerson's still the coach, which is my assumption. And so I don't, when I look at it, I have a lot of hope because of what we were just talking about in terms of the familiarity and improvement and getting to know each other and being able to play with that and the chemistry. But I also have a little bit of trepidation because I don't know where the lack of quality and lack of pushing the practice to be stronger is coming from. It should be the coach's responsibility to set the tone of the practice from the moment that practice begins. And if practice is not strong enough and not hard esse, then some players are just kind of going through the motions by this point in the season, if not earlier. And I do, I know that Gerson has spoken about that to some degree in terms of practice, and in terms of his frustration over some players not pushing themselves in practice as hard as they can.
Yes.
Some of that comes from the immaturity of players and being young players. But I think also that's something the coach should figure out and something that the coach should be pulling out of these players. And it's by no means am I saying I don't want Gerson back, but if that's going to be the case, they need to find an assistant for him or somebody on his technical staff from the Dynamo side that's able to pull that out in practice, that's able to elevate that practice to the next level, that's able to elevate these players to the next level. Because right now we're seeing, because of that gulf in talent, which it's not really a gulf in talent, it's a gulf in maturity and professionalism. And at the end of the day, and consistency. And if they're, and AJ definitely hit on the inconsistent part of that. And so if that's what it is, then they need to be drilling that day in and day out. You need to give me 100% day in and day out. If you can't give me 100% today, then get off my field. That's the way it needs to be. It needs to be very cut and dry. We're not going to accept less than 100% of what you can bring because we know you're good enough to be here. If you're good enough to be here, you should be here 100%. And I feel like at practice, and I don't have anything to lean on to say this, but I'm saying this just me personally based on what I've seen in matches and what I've seen, that I suspect there are some players that are not giving it 100% day in and day out. And I wonder how much that's going to play into what decisions are made this offseason. And there may be a player or two that may surprise people that may not be here next season. But just know if that's the case, there's a good, strong reason for them not to be here. They're not just going to get rid of a player to get rid of a player. They're going to get rid of a player or let a player walk because there's a reason for that, because they have seen something, they have found something in that player that it doesn't jive with what the Dynamo and RGV want out of their players. See, Jacob, you got me on a rant, bro. That's all your fault.
Right?
I mean, this is what this show has been. It's just been ranting. So.
Well, you're to that part in the season when you're looking at the very strong possibility of not making playoffs. You get to that point where you just need to vent
How
your
could you
frustrations.
not?
You got to vent your frustrations, and this is how it works.
Ray?
Well, I mean, it's hard to disagree with anything that Sean has said tonight. I mean, it's even hard to even put on a sparring round. I mean, nobody knows what the practices are like, and none of us are able to see what those practices are like. We can only see what we have in our screens and when we go to the stadium lives every 15 days or every 7 days if we're that lucky. But it is interesting to see how the team will come out this coming Saturday against Oklahoma City.
Thing to put out there is if you can't beat OKC, you can't beat any other team.
Well,
it's sad but true.
To be fair, OKC has come up in a good run on this past couple of matches. They're on a roll right now, so you can't really, I think the biggest concern was when we couldn't beat Tulsa.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, OKC are coming off of their last 5 games is draw, lose, lose, win, win, which is actually not in that particular order, but the same for RGV.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's the same form. It's just there's a difference in who's peaking and who's not peaking.
Yeah.
Yes.
One other thing to keep in mind. Actually, never mind. I just blanked on what I was going to say, and it was so freaking good too. Dang it.
It'll come back
Oh,
eventually.
it will. Go ahead. Keep talking.
But that's the thing about this Saturday. We don't know who we're gonna get. Is Carlos Osmal going to be starting? And if he is, how long he's going to be actually playing?
And when is he going to be subbed off?
Exactly. We feel like 58th minute was maybe a bit too soon, but like we said, we're not there in practices.
Yeah.
So only coach knows what his fitness is right now. And really, is the attack going to show up? Is the attack going to show up without Carlos?
Good night.
Yes.
Okay, I remembered now, and you guys are going to love this because it's great. So, we've talked ad nauseum on Generation Orange about the Dynamo struggles this season can be keyed mostly to their injury concerns and injury issues that they've had. Wilmer even talked about that in his post-match conversations, post-match comments, to answers to questions. There we go.
Yes.
I couldn't think. And so, remember, that also has played an impact in RGV this season because players that maybe would have been sent back weren't sent back as quick or weren't sent back as frequently, like your Jared Watts, your Lundqvist probably could have spent 2 or 3 more weeks down there at least.
Eric Bird
is another good example. Connor Donovan, even though he spent time with RGV after he was called up, it's not been as much as would have been expected. Some of that is due to injuries. The Dynamo depth this season took a serious hit with injuries, and it's way more than any other team has experienced this season, no matter what Jesus may think. It was crazy the number of injuries they had on that back line. Like, unbelievable numbers in terms of injuries. And when your entire back line almost twice over is out with injuries, it's hard to field a back line that's not a USL back line. And so, as a result, RGV players were being plucked as a result of that. So while it was good for those players and it was good for RGV to have players going up, it hurt your depth. It hurt RGV's, not just depth, but it hurt RGV's starting lineup. And so next season, hopefully the Dynamo don't have these same injury problems and these same injury consistent issues that keep popping up. Hopefully Cabezas is not injured for the entire freaking season. Hopefully he's back very soon. But as a result of that, maybe Eric Bird is back next season with RGV, but still on a Dynamo contract. Maybe we see other players that are signed to Dynamo contracts, but they're not going to be called up as frequently, which means they're going to get that consistency. They're going to get that time at RGV. And that's for next season. I'm just trying to give you guys that glimmer of hope in an otherwise dark, bleak world. And the other thing to keep in mind is a team, and it's true in soccer, and really in just about any league, a team can go on a win streak and completely change their fortunes. And as you guys have said, if RGV can win the rest of their matches, which that's a huge ask, but not completely out of the realm of possibility, just out of the realm of probability, but that's totally different. But if they can go on that string of wins in a row, if they can get those 3 points out of the next few matches and put themselves in position, it puts pressure on their opponents to have to actually play them hard. And I think there are teams right now that take RGV a little less seriously than they probably should. And we know that RGV is capable. Capable is not necessarily actually doing it, but it means that we've seen that they're good enough. And so it wouldn't surprise me if they managed to pull off this string at the end of the season and win them all. With that being said, though, even if they do, as you guys have said, mathematically they need help.
Yeah.
So something else is going to have to happen. But we've seen it time and time again in soccer. Something else always happens.
So Cisco says it's pretty going back with AJ. It's pretty telling that a player off a 10-month injury who was eased back in thinks training isn't up to speed.
Absolutely.
And then
Well, I mean, to be fair though, he had pre-match. He didn't have the practice the day before. He only had the pre-match. He
Yeah.
didn't have a full practice. But they should still be going hard in the day training, like for practice or for pre-match. They should be going. They should be getting themselves to that level.
Yeah.
And AJ said he had two more things that they were going to do. Practice scrimmages or whatever. And so, it's clear that RGV practices are not up to what they need to be. And, I think there was some hope that Carlos Small coming in would be a push for some of those attackers to take it to the next level. I think we've seen the opposite with some players, that they've suddenly gone completely silent and cold and dark and where the hell it happened to them, type of thing. But I also think that the offseason is what some of these players need to get their act together, to get their mentality back in check and realize, I'm a professional player. I'm playing for money, which means I either show up to my job every day and work my job the way I'm supposed to work my job, or I need to find a new profession. And so I think it'll improve next season. I just don't know if it's what the requirement is to help it improve, because front office can only do so much. Dynamo can only do so much when it comes to technical staff in terms of pushing Gerson to do it. And at some point, if he's not able to get it to happen, you got to look elsewhere.
So, a quick question by Alex Centeno, who, by the way, welcome to Down in the Valley. He says, does anyone know if the U.S. Open Cup will be on TV?
Yes.
Come back with that question. You broke up.
The Open Cup, is it going to be on TV? The answer is yes. It's going to be on one of the ESPN TV channels, probably ESPN2, but it will be on the ESPN TV channel, not just ESPN Plus or ESPN. Well, they don't have 3 anymore, but it won't be on ESPN Plus, so it'll be on ESPN2 most likely.
Or unless Sean gets us all free tickets and then we make our way up there.
I mean, you guys can come
kidding,
up.
Can you?
I cannot commit to anything at this point, but let me make a few phone calls. If you guys can commit to make it up, I can work my magic. Ask Edson. I work magic.
Hey, I already told my boss, so.
All right, let me work it out. I'll have an answer. No joke. I'll have an answer for you guys. I'll have a
Sean, for the record, I think I've seen you pull a rabbit out of a hat before.
You would be surprised. There are some things that even Edson doesn't know that happened over the day today that he's going to find out and be like, whoa, okay, cool. So, anyways, but yeah, I'll give our ticket rep a call and see if I can get you guys hooked up with some tickets.
Or Cesar, unless you want to take pictures at the Open Cup.
Oh yeah,
match.
we can get you media access, easy.
Yeah. Well, either or.
Yeah, just let us. I mean, just let us know what you prefer. I mean,
Well, the lens should get here by then.
yeah.
So when is he supposed to be taking that picture? I need to make sure we know the exact day
This
and time.
Saturday.
Saturday.
All right. And so, okay, so the key to this whole thing is not only is he taking this picture, it's going to be tweeted out from down in the valley so that Jeff Strong can retweet it, because
Yes.
that means everybody is
yeah.
going to see it.
I know.
We just have to
And if
hold.
questioned, I already have my retorts.
We have to make sure that this bet that we all went into, and Jacob was a little concerned for a bit there, that that we all hold you to the end of the bargain, because we all had to go through the pain of wondering what was going to happen. And
Well, except for
No,
you.
no, no.
'cause you're like-
no. Remember the first round? I was sitting there. That it wasn't until the last day that I took the lead. I was seriously concerned until that last day, and then all of a sudden, or the last 2 days, and then all of a sudden, my teams did what they were supposed to do. I was like, oh, whew.
With my knowledge, I already knew it was.
Yeah, you dropped out after the group stage. You were like, forget this crap. I'm out.
Yeah, like I'm out. I can't take it.
So, what else do you have for us, Sean?
Um,
Come on, give me the juicy deets.
I got nothing RGV side right now. I mean, we've already talked all the observations that I've had, and you know what? I got to save a few things for Greg next week. For talking to Greg next week. So, if with Greg on next week, anytime we can get Greg on, it's an awesome show. And his segments are always top notch because he's got that inside info, type of thing. And
It's probably a good thing you're getting Greg at a good timing zone right now, because with high school football coming up around
that's fair.
the state of Texas, this would be a good time to get him on.
Yep,
Before he hits full
before-
slate with football.
Absolutely, right before he goes full bore. But we already talked to him, and we said once a month, and he was all about it, and that was he knew it was coming. So once a month. He's going to commit to it. And I realize that, that may not get a whole lot out of him, but that just means we have to think through some good questions to actually ask him,
Yeah.
when he comes on. And I love that Greg and I made that a thing. Like, hey, so we're going to make this a monthly thing? Yeah, I guess. All right, cool, let's do it.
But yeah, I mean, there's
Sorry,
like
what?
You checked
said-
out, sorry.
Like you said, there's hope at the end of the tunnel. The question is,
Can we see the light?
can we see the light before the season ends?
Well, and I said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. There are hopeful things, even right now, even in the darkness around you, if you will. There's hope. There are lights in the darkness. There are players that have shown that their next season is going to be incredible, and having Carlos Small for an entire season for RGV is going to be amazing. And especially since he's going to have time to get to that level where he's going to be 100% match fit for every match in a season.
Now, my other question has just popped into my head, and that is the future once Jordan Jones, when Jordan Jones is doing decent, Max Steves, when he comes back from
Absolutely.
his rehabilitation.
And he's going to spend a good chunk of time down with RGV. Now that the Dynamo have Pena, they're going to focus on Pena and Morrow and try to get them, try to get that extra. Because Pena is a completely change of pace guy. I mean, we saw it in Open Cup.
No, it wasn't
Open Cup because he's an international. It was against SKC. SKC. You saw his power. I mean, that's really what was on display. I mean, he's a strong guy, stronger than I expected. I was like, holy crap. And so we have a hold-up guy finally. But what that means is that Max Steves is kind of on the outside looking in when it comes to it, when it comes to that. And so that means he's probably going to spend all of next season down in RGV unless he decides to go somewhere else, kind of like Joe Holland did, because he knows maybe he's not going to get a shot. But I mean, could you just imagine Carlos Small and Max Steves on the pitch together with Chewy and Bryce Marion on the outside with basically a 4 forward formation? Holy crap! USL ain't ready for that.
Well, I think that's the problem, because we think, like, based on our roster, we say, oh, this might be a good thing.
Yeah.
But Jerson thinks otherwise.
Absolutely. Well, we say that, but he hasn't had those players to be able to do that. He hasn't had Max Steves to be able to do that. And if he can get back Eric Bird next season, you have a guy that can deliver that ball from deep, kind of like a Cesc Fabregas, which I hate Chelsea, but I can say that now because he's not a Chelsea player, thank God. But that type of truly deep-lying midfielder that can play the ball forward long, Max Steves and Carlos Small are the perfect guys to hit those balls onto Chewy, hit those balls onto Bryce, let those guys get space, and then they can cross it into the box. And even if it is just the 3 forward formation with the way that they've been playing, with Bryce out wide and Chewy out wide and then Carlos up top, you get a whole season of that. You get most of the match of that going forward instead of just 30 to 45 minutes. And so that's a huge improvement.
And I think that would also put pressure on Aldo to be like, hey,
Absolutely.
you're not the only guy anymore.
And I think that there's a conversation that comes in the off season. Whoever it is that gives those conversations that says, hey, we want you back next season. That conversation is going to be, hey, we want you back, but we also understand you struggled at the end of the season. We expect more out of you. Bring it next season. And I think that's going to be kind of what he needs to hear to go, okay, they still believe enough in me that they're going to keep me around, but they also know that I need to, push a little harder. And, and some of it comes from they need a few more veterans. And, I said it before, they needed some veterans in the attack just so that the players know what the level is they've got to reach. I feel like right now it's just some imaginary bar that's called the Dynamo. Right? That's the level they want to reach, but they don't know. There's no gauge.
It's an abstract
There's
idea.
no gauge for the process. There's no gauge in terms of how do I get there.
And when Aldo played with the Dynamo, it was against an amateur team.
It was against a team that if he didn't run roughshod over, there were going to be a lot of questions asked, let's be honest. And so, while he had a great showing against them, until I see it consistently at the USL level, he's not going to get a look at the Dynamo, not long term. And so that's why even coming out of that Open Cup match, I was like, pump the brakes, people, pump the brakes. Yes, he looked phenomenal, but it was against a team that was really not good quality, all things considered.
And he only has 4 goals, and they were on the beginning of the season.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's reminiscent of players that I've seen before. Forwards and strikers are notoriously, you know, they're streaky, and then they're confidence-based. If they lose that confidence, which I feel like he did, obviously, then they struggle to find the net. And sometimes an off-season is what they need to recollect their thoughts, to get back to just the basics and the fundamentals. And I think that Quintanilla, that's what he needs to do. He needs to stop trying cute things and just focus on being the player he is, which is a striker. Just be a striker. Just do the basics, fundamental stuff, and do it well. And put the damn effort in practice. But I digress.
Well, any...
I said I'm out of water. That's crazy.
Any final thoughts, guys?
See you Saturday, I hope.
I'll be
See
there.
y'all Saturday
Everybody but me.
with my walk of shame.
Well,
Please don't tell me I have to wear it while I'm on the field taking pictures.
well, no, you can't.
You can't.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
It's going to have to be, you're going to have to show up early to the match, and you're going to have to go to whatever pre-match.
Like the
Stuff
scarf
they
is
have.
going to be in my. It's going to be in my backpack.
And I'm sure
Okay.
there are going to be some Stampede members who are going to some local beverage establishment.
Oh, which reminds
The
me, the
Stampede
Stampede
Corral.
tailgate.
Yes, that's what I was referring
That's
to.
where the picture will be taken if anyone wants to
yes,
see.
Yes. And you know what? I feel like it needs to be a booth. 5 cents and you can take a picture with him. Maybe $5.
Go
Maybe
fund
$5.
us downinthevalley.com.
That's awesome. Next year we'll next year we'll figure out something for next year. But next year we'll have to have a Down in the Valley scarf, and then a San Antonio scarf, one on each shoulder type thing. I don't know. Something. We'll figure
I
something.
think we should do like a match day scarf.
Ooh, versus like the Dynamo do the split scarf.
Yeah.
That would
I had the
prob-
idea of having like the area numbers 956 versus 210 or something like that in the
Oh, that
gangster
would be
lettering.
Cool. That would be cool.
So that might be an idea for
That's something you can
Here-
put up on the shop.
The problem is, and I think I'll go ahead and say it out loud. The problem is, it's just that there hasn't been enough support
Yeah.
to garner interest in order for me to say,
Just
okay,
put the money forward to
Yeah,
know
put
that
the
people
money
are going to buy.
yes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I put up a poll on Twitter and they said, oh yeah, I'd be willing to buy stuff from the shop. And I was talking about like 50 people answered and like 70 said yes.
Yeah.
And I put up
Yeah.
I put up the shirt.
Yeah.
Nobody bought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, I understand because with Teespring it was really expensive,
Yeah.
which is why I'm going to try going local.
Yeah.
And, but still,
Yeah. The
it-
support has to be there to do stuff like that.
yeah,
Absolutely.
especially with scarves, which is a really huge.
Well, unless you get a sponsorship.
Well, I mean,
Well, our raffle went well.
yeah, but not enough to buy like 20 like.
Yeah, I don't know what the minimum is.
I think it's like 50. Some people
for
are
those,
50.
Yeah, for those.
One of the winners was actually a Stampede member.
Nice.
But all right, guys. So if Ray, you got anything else you want to talk about?
Not really. I mean, unless you want to give me some 10 minutes for Barracuda's platform.
Sure.
I'm actually really looking forward to that this year.
Yeah, we can talk 10 minutes, guys, about it. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean, for your input. Really appreciate the Dynamo perspective in all of this.
Absolutely.
You muted yourself.
Surely opened my eyes.
Absolutely.
All right. So thank you, and
Thank you,
remember
Sean.
remember next Tuesday, Generation Orange at 7 p.m. right here on Down in the Valley's YouTube channel. So if you guys want to hear more about the Dynamo perspective in this in this partnership, be sure to check out Down in the Valley Express, part of Generation Orange, which is usually yes, that's what I said.
You said Down in the Valley Express.
RGV Express. Woo, woo. So be sure to check it out. It's usually around 8:30, around there. We talk a little bit, but you guys want to know what happens with the Dynamo? Check out Generation Orange. Also a 2 hour, 3 hour show, depending on how much stuff we talk and how we're feeling. But yeah, be sure to check us out there. So Alex Centeno, I know you're probably new around here. Guys, if you have not subscribed, be sure to subscribe to the channel. That way, that allows you
to get notifications whenever we do go live. Be sure to like the video, share it with your friends once it goes into it gets syndicated in YouTube, as well as when it hits Google Play Store, iTunes, Stitcher, and the SoundCloud. So be sure to subscribe to those platforms and share the link out with all your RGV friends or everybody who's interested in RGV. Be sure to share it so we can. It helps us out a lot. It's good support, getting these views. So that's it as far as RGV. I think we've talked about a lot of things. Obviously, we didn't get to talk a lot much about the OKC game, but I think what was imperative right now to talk about is what happened in Sacramento, that the display of some of these players isn't up to snuff. What AJ De La Garza mentioned about the Toros and why things are happening like this. I think it's been a real eye opener for all of us, and understanding, especially with the words that AJ De La Garza said. I think it brought up a whole new topic that I originally had no plans of having. But when he said it coming from him, I was like, we really need to talk about that and why this team is getting the results they are is because what AJ said. There's so much inconsistency. But that's it for RGV. Be sure to watch at, I believe it's at 7:30 p.m. on Saturday. RGVFC will host OKC Energy, so be sure to tune in on ESPN Plus. Thankfully, there are no blackouts. But be sure to check it out at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN Plus, RGV versus OKC Energy. Be sure to, if you guys aren't, be sure to go to the stadium. First and foremost, go to the stadium. Tickets start at $5. So
take a picture with the idiot booth.
And be sure if you guys want to hang out with the Stampede will be at the northern end of the stadium in the actual park, in the picnic area. They're gonna be there. They're gonna have food. They're gonna have beer. Hang out with the Stampede, and hey, who knows? Maybe
tacos. I think too.
Yeah, who knows? You might like being in the supporters group. But be sure to go out there, be loud, be proud, support the Toros, and hopefully we can get the win this Saturday against OKC. And then, and then next Wednesday, it will be RGV will visit LA Galaxy 2 at StubHub Center. That game will be at
California trip.
That game would be at 9:30 p.m., which means that gives us time to do a pre-show down in the valley, regular time, Wednesday, 7 to 9. We're gonna have a show, kind of leading up to this game against. We're gonna talk about the OKC match, but we're also gonna talk and lead up for the LA Galaxy 2 match. So be sure to join us on Wednesday, 7 to 9, 9:30 on ESPN Plus. LA Galaxy 2 will host RGVFC Toros, and then next Saturday will be the match between Orange County SC and RGV Toros. RGV will still stay there in the Orange County region to play against OCSC. And be sure to check out next week. I will let you all know. Jacob and I will be our guests with the Orange and Black Soccer Cast, which is the podcast for Orange County SC. We are going to be guests next week on their podcast. So when it is released, we will post out the link so you guys can listen to them as well, and you guys can get their perspective on what they think of us and what they expect from next Saturday's match. So having said all of this, thank you, Toros. Hashtag we are Toros. Hashtag Somos Toros. Now let's talk a little bit about the Barracudas, because Ray has some new information about them.
Well, a couple of pieces of notes. Barracudas announced their head coach last Friday, and the MASL has announced their
the new
alignment for all the conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first off, the Barracudas made a splash hire with Hanoni Martinez, a native out of Mexico City. He did mention in an interview with a Mexican media outlet that he that if he did return, he wanted to do both coaching and playing. So it's going to be real interesting if and when that contract of coming back as an active player will be activated.
How
And
old
then
is he?
He's going to be 43 during the season.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming like a month or two into the season, he'll be 43.
Okay.
And his primary role will be as a defender.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that is going to play out. What is really going to be the need for the
Yes,
Barracudas?
and not only that, but there's going to be maybe 3 to 4 players being held over from last season roster. Martinez is dubbed El Jefe de Jefes by Mexican media outlet El Sexto Atacante, in which I I'll have no further comment for that outlet. I have some very, very strong opinions, and as a media outlet that they are, I will fulfillly respect that. And the other piece of news was the division alignment that the MASL announced. Now that there's going to be, of course, 2 conferences, same as last season, but there's going to be a total of 17 teams, with the addition of Mississauga, which is in the outskirts of the Toronto area, the relocation of Syracuse to Utica, New York, and the bigger news was the relocation from the Cedar Rapids Rampage all the way down to the Orlando Seawolves.
And let's not forget that the Dallas Sidekicks are making a comeback.
And the Dallas Sidekicks are making a return after a 1-year hiatus. And one of the things that I like to mention is that now there's going to be 3 teams in Texas and 1 in Mexico, which would form the Southwest Division in the Western Conference. The Pacific Division remains unchanged from last season, where you have 3 teams in California and 1 in Tacoma, Washington. And then jumping over to the Eastern Conference real quick, you're going to have the Canadian team, Mississauga, Baltimore, Utica, Harrisburg, the Heat. Those are all in the Eastern Conference. And then you're going to have the South Central Conference with the Florida Tropics, the Orlando Seawolves, the Milwaukee Wave, the Kansas City Comets, and the St. Louis Ambush. And as your other Eastern Conference division. And it's going to be interesting how this schedule pans out, because my way of thinking would have been get rid of the divisions, put us all in two conferences, and let the 4 best teams out of each conference make the playoffs instead of having divisions.
Yeah. My question, going back with Barracudas, is number 1. What is the accolades? What are the accolades? What does our new manager bring to the table?
Well, Henoni Martinez has been well known to take or to guide teams into 5 different championships. So he's going to bring a boatload of leadership to the club. That's number 1. And number 2, in his last coaching role, he ended up crowning the Monterey Flash in the inaugural MASL season. Right after the PASL had merged with the MASL to create this one big super league. So Henoni Martinez isn't a stranger to winning championships and to being in championships. So that's one of the bigger things that they brought in Martinez for, to bring in a very big load of leadership and experience to the squad.
Yeah.
And how much, or is there some sort of player style that he is like? Is there a specific trait of his teams that we can expect out of the Barracudas? In regards to the type of players being brought in, or the type of tactics that he's accustomed to. Is there something that you can let the fans know what we can expect from Martinez?
Martinez is a hard, get in your nose type of defender, and with the teams that he's always had a very balanced attack. He's not gonna have a one prolific scorer like Sonora would with Frank Tayu. I think Tanone's teams have always been tended to be defensive first, to be to be a very sturdy defensive team, to play clean, not to and not to draw many fouls, not to get into dumb power play situations.
Yeah.
And as far as his attack, it's very balanced because it's he's like the type of the coach that likes to spread the wealth when it comes to scoring.
Yeah.
And he'll even get into the action too. Back when he was a player with the in one of the older indoor leagues, he was ninth overall in scoring, despite being a get in your nose type of defender.
Mm-hmm. So I just hope that we can see better results this next season than what we got last season. I think last year was kind of like a lot was expected, a lot was promised of the team, and
Yes.
it just fell flat on the floor. We had with Woso, the signing of Woso, and that he didn't really play much with the team. The results that frankly was not something that we expected out of this team, and hopefully now with the signing of such a well-known player coach with Martinez, that we can see some better results from this team. That we can fight for a playoff spot this season, and hopefully that'll bring in fans to go to State Farm Arena and watch the Barracudas.
Definitely, and Martinez will be made available to the public September 8th and 9th when the team have their tryouts over at Barracuda Sports Park, located 7593 California Road in Brownsville. Easiest way to get there, if you're traveling to Brownsville, take the Boca Chica exit and take a left-hand turn and then just drive north. You're going to pass the airport, you're going to pass the National Weather Service area until you hit California Road. California Road, you take a right, and you take it all the way down till you start seeing some big bright lights or some big old light poles. There's like a little church that surrounds it, and Barracuda Sports Park is right there. Cost of tryouts is $25. You can sign up online at barracudasfc.com/tryouts. The form is available there online, and you can also pay there online if you like.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the more Valley people try out, I think it'd be better. Just the fact that you're gonna have a team that potentially host or have on the roster a lot of homegrown talent. I think it's a good step into playing professionally, because we know teams like the Toros, it's a lot more foreign to the region-based talent. And teams like Barracudas, you know, I think they're a lot more welcoming, a lot more. It's a lot more accessible for homegrown talent to show what they have in tryouts, get signed by this team, and actually get some consistent minutes with this team, with the Barracudas, and represent.
Yeah,
the Valley.
and if I may share this,
Yeah,
take
go
too
ahead.
long with it. Um, so during the course of the week, I've been talking to some of the players who for one reason or another they did the tryout process. They were signed by the club, but the visa issues were a major factor as to why they could not see the field.
Hmm.
And they're all like, "Well, is it worth for me to go back?" I mean, and I tell them, "Hey, look, at the end of the day, it's your career. If you want to continue playing at an amateur level, go ahead." But in the games that he was able to play, I mean, this guy had some crazy scoring goals, and they want to come back, but now it's just the the legalities of getting the visas is now an obstacle that shouldn't be much of an obstacle anymore. And hopefully we can get some of these local players to come back and put on the blue and white and have fun at the arena.
Yeah, and so when is the season, or is that yet to be determined when it's going to start?
The season is going to start early December for sure.
Mhm.
We haven't had a confirmed home date. Lots of teams have been posting because, of course, they already have their arena availability dates ready to go. But since this year the team is sharing the building with the Killarby Hockey Club, uh, we're still balancing whether we're going to be playing the first weekend of December
Mhm.
or the second weekend. But do be aware for a press release here soon for our home opener.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be looking forward to that, as well as hopefully this will be a better season. There's a lot of potential with the signing of Martinez. Let's hope that this time that hype the team lives up to the hype. I just have a feeling with the difference
And
in
I
mentality.
just get a feeling with Martinez is that he already has a handful of players. Like during the off season, that he's been scouting through the Mexican league that have had close connection with the MASL
Mhm.
to come in and play for the Barracudas. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not going to drop any names only because uh, nothing's been official yet, but there is a handful of guys that he wants to bring in, and there is a handful of guys from last year's squad that are going to make the investment again and show Martinez that, hey, just because you bring the outside guys doesn't mean that we don't have the necessary talents to play along with your guys as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's
So
going to be 20 open spots for the team, and whether Giannoni takes one of those, we don't know yet. But right now, there's going to be 20 open spots plus open tryouts for September 8th and 9th,
Mhm.
and let's see how that goes.
yeah, just keep us on the loop, and social media, or here in the program. So guys from the Rio Grande Valley, or even here in Houston, if you guys want to try out for indoor soccer, we know that Houston doesn't have one. So for arena soccer, you know, you might want to be interested in trying out with RGV, with the Barracudas. I think, I mean, the Valley is a decent place to live, especially in McAllen. So, if you have that itch, like, I want to try being, pro in arena soccer, give it a try. I mean, you don't lose much from trying out, and I think what you gain from making it, I think, outweighs the whatever. I guess you can say the entrance fee to the tryout. So give it a try. Once again, what were the dates as well? It was September. What was it?
September 8th and 9th at 10 a.m. at Barracuda Sports Park
In Brownsville. So
In Brownsville.
you guys are more than welcome. People in RGV, people in Houston, people in San Antonio. If you're people that are listening from there in San Antonio, go try out for the Barracudas. I'm sure. We welcome you with open arms. And let's see what you got. And having said all of this, it is 9:30. It is time for us to go. However, like I said, join us next week at 7 p.m. for the LA Galaxy 2 versus RGV FC Toros pre-game show, 7 to 9. Pretty much episode 34 of Down in the Valley. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Jacob, for joining us. Thank you, Cesar. I know he had to leave right now. Do want to give a quick shout out to Wonderful Sloth, and I believe that is Alex Centeno. They have just joined the the RGVFC, the Down in the Valley Discord chat. Right now, welcome guys to the chat. If you guys know any of your friends that are RGVFC fans or people that want to know more about RGVFC, be sure to join the RGVFC Discord chat. I will be posting, actually, the Discord link, the invite link is pinned on our social media down at thergv.com. So be sure to go there, click the link, join the RGVFC Discord chat. That way that will be a place for us to talk with other RGVFC fans and talk more about RGV, what we know, and also like kind of hype up the next episode of Down in the Valley. I do also want to thank everybody who has been active in the YouTube chat. Really thank you all for your support, for watching, for collaborating and participating in the chat. You guys bring in a lot of different topics that we can talk about, or things that we do not know. Thank you, Cisco, for letting us know all about Tyler Derrick and Connor Donovan being here in Houston. And thank you, Beautiful Game Network, for all that you've done, for all your support to Down in the Valley podcast. Be sure to check them out at the BGN FM. Also, BGN Written. I know Ray, he is now part of the Beautiful Game Network Written. He will be writing articles for them about RGVFC, so be sure whenever his articles go up, we will be retweeting them, so be sure to check them out. Read them, give us your feedback about it, and be sure to go out to the stadium to support the Toros. Also, check out downintheRGV.com, where either Jacob or I will be writing some articles as well for the Toros, sometimes for the Dynamo, kind of depends on what we feel like. So be sure to check that out. Cesar will be uploading his pictures in the gallery as well. There are some other things that are coming up for the website as well. Be sure to check out Down in the Valley Gaming. Be sure to subscribe to Down in the Valley Gaming. We have some things that I still need to kind of render so I can upload a new video. I believe this one's going to be for The Crew 2. We have plans of playing some other games, and you can also suggest on Down in the RGV at Down in the RGV on Twitter. Suggest some games that you would like for us to try out and play. I know Ray or Sean is going to be doing a lot of. I think he said he wanted to do Minecraft and some other RPG games. Jacob and I have been doing The Crew 2. Have been doing. I know we have plans of doing. What was the name of that bus one, Jacob?
Desert Bus.
Desert Bus. We have plans on doing multiplayer with that. The guys from the Dynamo Discord and we've done Rocket League as well, and I've uploaded as well a Grand Theft Auto 5 video. So be sure to check it out, subscribe to the channel, and support us that way. For the next couple of episodes, there is a link down there in the description. If you guys want to tip us, any monetary donation, we greatly appreciate it. $1, $2, $4. You guys want to pay our rent, that's fine with us. But there is a link down in the description in order to donate. and your donation will appear live on the screen, as well as a message that you want us to say will appear right on the screen live on this show when we do go live here on YouTube. So please support us in any way that you can. Support the Toros that way, because you support us, you support the team, because you show that the fans care enough about the team in order to know by learning more of it through the independent media, whether it's us or whether it's other people like Persiguiendo un Sueño that do some coverage on RGVSC as well, with them in Spanish. And speaking of that, there is, I am going to say it right now, I will also be writing articles here in the Houston area. I will be writing articles for Mente Futbolera about RGVFC. So it's time to expand the brand to the fans here in Houston, so that way that way they can pay attention to the Toros as well. Having said all of this, really appreciate you all being here. We will see each other next week. Take care, and hashtag We Are Toros, hashtag Somos Toros. Have a good night, guys.
I carried you home, taking all the weight off your shoulders. Now we're all gone, falling into 1 year older. It's funny how our love began when I was sober. Now I stumble in a room where nobody else cares. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking. We've been up, down, way too many times, and now my tries. Deja vu round, spinning me into another lost time. Tell me where this road will end before I drive over the edge. Give me one break to recover myself, because I can't bear. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking. Now I'm in two minds thinking about you. I'm in two minds thinking whether I'm too kind to give you all of my truth. I'm in two minds thinking. Why?